Am I doing an intro to the show, Nate?
Yeah.
I hate that bit.
I'm gonna lock this door.
I hate it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Academy Football Network podcast, and go again.
It's a podcast. It's a pop tart. You know one of them.
Oh god. All right. Okay, Academy Football Network podcast, and we're back, and we have. How do I want to introduce this person? I want to say. Has supported so many coaches over the years, and they will probably say developed, educated, but we have special guest, Mr. Paul Holder. Thank you for coming on the show.
Welcome.
That's it. So, listen, teacher, Crystal Palace Academy for many years, David Beckham Academy, regional coach educator for the FA, national coach educator for the FA, Brighton and Hove, head of coaching, FA national coach educator again and probably throughout. Where are we with youth development?
Where are we with it? Or where is everybody with it?
Where is everybody with it?
Well, it's an industry,
Yeah,
whereas before it was a hobby.
interested.
And that industry has led to some fantastic stuff. I worry that it's that it's got overcomplicated and you've forgotten the basics of essentially the game, why kids play it, what's the starting point. Sometimes you can get lost in all the tactics and the science and all the data and everything, and then forget what the game's all about. So I think we've got to be careful with that. I think that it's a great opportunity for young ex-players or non-ex-players, but young people to get into coaching. The downside of that is the quality. Can you have quantity and quality at the same time? And there is a thing about, I remember being a teacher and a coach in my early days is taking 2 or 3 age groups.
Wow.
But having a few...
You don't hear that now. Now you need 2 or 3. There's probably a team of people around the group.
So there's this specialisation early.
Yeah.
Under 14s and gravitate. Still this thing about gravitating up the ages, about the better coaches go and work with older ages kids. And that's reflected in getting paid more and so on and so forth, and career pathways. I think if you were to look at youth development, there are people that find a niche with primary school kids, the way they operate. I have a particular niche with sort of 14 to 18, 19-year-olds. That's probably because I taught in a secondary school. And I've always sort of linked in with them better than any other age group. I had to learn how to deal with primary school kids because I never dealt with them before. So that's a learning curve. But I think all coaches should have the opportunity to work across all the ages. And
understand the pathway and the ages and stages.
And the development of them. And it forces you to, if you're taking an under 9 group and then the next minute you're taking an under 16 group, you've got to be adaptive.
You've got to be almost a different person.
Well, yeah, the language, but essentially the kids are still there probably for the same reasons, although when they're 16 they probably want a career out of it. When they're 9 or 10, they don't know what's going on. So I think that about specialisation is a problem, because I always think that if you're a good coach, you go across a number of different ages and stages. And I noticed Chris Ramsey at QPR. I was with him the other day, and he's, 1 minute he's coaching the first team, next minute he's helping with the under 9s. And that must keep him occupied in his head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Rather than get stayed into one particular
age group
or group of ages.
There's a couple of things that are ringing in my head now in regards to just your introduction to when I said about youth development. It definitely complicated is standing out to me in regards to, one, what does that mean to you, but also I probably think about reflecting on my own work in the environment of football and thinking, do I complicate it, or is it complicated, or have we gone complicated because we want to find so much information, but sometimes we don't need that information.
I think the if you start calling thing a career, and you start saying this is a career, and the opportunities to learn more about coaching has never been greater. Premier League, the Football League, the FA, universities, you can get master's degree in coaching football. That inflates the sort of qualifications. It inflates the sort of detail, if that's ever a term. And it seems to me like, I think we're scared of going simple, as if it's not enough. And yet the kids play the game for very simple reasons. Yet do we know what they are? Why do kids play football? And I'm talking I know someone who's he's a pro, and he plays, if you asked him about, and he's at Premier League Academy, if you asked him about the game, he said, I haven't changed what I think about the game ever since I started. I just love the game for this reason, this reason, and this reason. And we need to tap into that. It's a bit like a shopping list. You get, what do you need? You always ask, what do you need when you go to the supermarket?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah.
They're different. So what do you need? So the coach's job is to look at the needs of the game and try and feed that into them. But then what do they want? They want you to be good to them. They want you to be honest. And they want to be themselves. And I think, and they want to learn from the game. If you think of the game, how much it chucks out to kids, in terms of emotions, in terms of sense, feel, feeling pressure, feeling
100%.
Moments in the game. It's an emotional journey, and I think we're in danger of hijacking that with detail and information. Kids have got to get lost in the game, lost in it. And we relentlessly take them out of this bubble and put them back in and expect them to get back out into it. And it's a bit like a film. You watch a great film, I bet you, when you get immersed in a great film, you remember every single word of that film for a long, long time. And they've got to remember the experiences of the game. And that's why I think we've got to simplify it. But to simplify, we've got to understand what the game chucks out to them. I think we've lost the track of that.
Where do you think that change has come from? I mean, you talked first of all in terms of the kind of corporate feel to academies now versus the community enjoyment feel that previously was, or maybe still is in certain areas. If academies are able to do that, definitely we know that academies are under all sorts of pressure to develop assets, let's say, in regards to the environment for the professional game or a first team to generate revenue. That's evidenced. But where's that pressure come from to not understand the child?
I think all those pressures, plus the fact that you're always looking for something more complicated.
Yeah.
And don't forget now, if you turn on Sky Sports, let's take tactics, for example. If a coach said to me, if I said tactics to a coach, likelihood is they'll talk about formations. Manchester City, whoever they are, or Oldham, it doesn't matter who they are, they'll talk about formations. But that actually, tactics is the basic part of the game, but it's individual. How you deal with time, space and numbers as an individual. Because if you don't get the individual tactics right, people talk about units, midfield, back four. If you don't get the individual tactics right, the unit won't work and the team won't function. But we go straight to formations with tactics. I think those pressures of understanding tactics come from also when you watch on telly, Sky Sports, kids will learn a lot from Sky Sports on the tactical side. Everything is analysed down to the nth degree. But I also think the corporate thing about the money side of it and what players are worth when they're 9, 10, 11 and 12. There's a value to players when they go into academies.
As soon as you sign, you're value.
Well, as soon as you put the dirty money in, you're going to get pressures. Yeah? So you get examples of kids who are unhappy at clubs but are not allowed to move unless the other club pays a certain amount of money, so they drop out. You know, there's some rough side to that.
And you do see the effects of that in terms of if a child, because they are children, have this monetary dollar sign over their head or pound sign over their head, then they may never ever play football at terms of reaching their potential, because clubs will go, well, I'm not going to pay that money for you.
Well, they become, you know, they're now in the mix, the marketing mix and the economics of it. But actually, what should happen as soon as they step over that line, the white line, they should be kids, and they should be able to. They should be free of all these. So all these sort of threats and opportunities and stresses can go on as long as it doesn't affect
the child.
But it does in a number of cases, and we don't protect them from that.
Yeah.
In fact, what we do is expose them to it. So it's even down to liaising with parents and things like that. Do you exclude parents or do you include them?
Good point.
And actually, the parent is the most important, or the family is the most important part of the kid's upbringing, whether it's the nuclear family or whether it's an extended family or whether it's a foster parent, whatever it is, the carers. Yet clubs relentlessly now, it might be changing because of education, I get that, but there's this, we exclude or we include. Well, it's a no-brainer. You exclude and you've got a problem. You have to include. So what's that include look like? And then you've got agents, so you've got all these
all these people coming in, getting involved,
in,
which even probably make it even more complicated to both the child and the environment.
But the job of the coach is to protect, is to put a shield up. Don't let that impact on any enjoyment, fun, or love of the game.
In regards to your experience and going and observing and seeing different environments, you're probably in a lucky position. You can go dip your face in, see the environment, see what they're doing, and then maybe step away and be more reflective because you're not biased to anything in the environment. But do you see things getting better? Or, I only think about it because from outside looking in, I go, do you know what? At the very top level, let's look at, say, the youth teams at a national level. There's loads of players coming through, looks like from a youth level there's loads of better players, so to speak, but then you hear things in regards to the environment where you're probably thinking, is it as glossy as it's made out to be? Are we doing the right things on a positive path with youth development, or is there lots still to be done? I never quite know.
I think there is some fantastic practice out there. You know, and now clubs, and I refer to academies, but don't discount some of the great work grassroots clubs are doing in the welfare of the kids. Yeah. You know, we tend to say grassroots over here and academies there. Well, it's still football. Yeah. And kids still get the emotional returns playing grassroots as they do playing academies. It's the same. It's the same emotions you get from the game. They love the game. Now, our job, whether you're grassroots coach or academy coach, and even Lionel Messi, if you take Maradona, and he's not in the mix at the moment, but he just loved football, you know. And Messi would always say, look, if he stops loving football, he's not doing it anymore. So that love of the game is critical, whatever you're doing. So that's a priority. But I think youth development there's never been so great opportunities for kids now. The problem is it's the longest job interview you'll ever have. And it starts at 6 now. So the key is not to make it a job interview too early. Yeah. We talk about the job interviews are the assessments. You're constantly assessed, either formally or informally by... where's your down?
Where's your downtime? Where's your chill out time in regards to the environment? You're constantly assessed.
You can get a kid and you can get a kid that comes into an academy under 7, and he's still in academies, and he gets recruited early, and it's a fantastic experience. Make no bones about it. Get all the kit, get all that stuff. And by the time he's 14, that's 7 years. Yeah. That's double his lifetime. Yeah. By the time he's 18, he's been actually in this system for a long, long time. So if you drop out of that system and you've been in it a long, long time, honestly, that must be horrendous. If you've only been in it a year or so, I think it's slightly less. Well, no evidence of that, but you imagine going in at 7 and then being told at the end, no, this is a family. It's like, you've been living with people for 7 years and suddenly you can't live with them anymore. So that's the dilemma. Youth development has got some great bits to it, but we've got to address the other side of it.
I mean, just in your opinion, and we don't have all the answers. We have a discussion, and hopefully through our discussion, it sparks things in people's minds, or the good work that is happening out there.
It's a great work.
It spreads to other people, and people share, because again, you kind of feel like footballing environments they're kind of closed. They don't want to share too much at times, because if I share, it might give them 1 or 2% more to make better players, and then they're generating a better outcomes. And just talking about, just leaning on what you talked about in regards to that kind of 7 years, and obviously the kind of tragic news recently in regards to the young boy who took his own life, in regards to, and we don't know all the ins and outs of the situation, but in regards to what we're hearing, it's because he's come out of an environment that was probably his family for a long, long time.
It's hard enough if you're a sub
in
a team, let alone be released from a club. It's hard. If you've played, being a sub is painful enough.
Yeah.
If you're in that selection thing.
Yeah.
But then you multiply that by saying, we don't want you anymore. Now, that's inevitable. It happens in all sports and all things. If you go to the Royal Ballet or whatever you do, there's a recruitment, there's a selection process. But I don't understand why kids can't have dual passports. What I mean by that is, like, especially goalkeepers, why they can't play grassroots and join in academy football. I don't know why. What's the?
I think probably the easy answer to that is probably they want to protect their asset. Again, we talk about the finances and what the academies have turned into.
Actually,
in regards
I'm talking tosh, because I actually do know what. But the point is, can you imagine a kid who's sort of playing fantastic? I used to run district teams.
Yeah.
And district team back in the day. District teams would have players from all different professional clubs, and then they'll go to their professional club and do their stuff at weekends. Fine. But
Saturday morning, district
Saturday
teams.
mornings, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And in the summer, they go and play with their mates in tournaments and all that sort of stuff. So they're a bit dual passport. In other words, just go where you get your football.
Where you can get the enjoyment and fun.
The problem is, of course, now the value and thing about the sports science sometimes with teenagers about overuse and things like that. There's a lot of pressures on to stop that. But in terms of what the kids do, it keeps them in contact with their mates. It keeps them grounded, and there's always a place for them. Because one of the big questions if you release a kid from an academy is, and I've had loads of experiences of this, right, where can he get the coaching? Where can he play now? What can he do now if he's not going to be good enough for another professional academy?
I mean, I was just thinking about that young boy. What do we do? I'm talking about we, not us in the room, but in terms of professionals in the football environment. Where do we go to support? Is it the responsibility of the club? Is it the responsibility of the FA? Because they say, well, once they leave the club, it almost becomes. Don't get me wrong. There's clubs that do great work in regards to aftercare for the individual, but let's be honest, they're lost from the club as soon as they leave. Most young people find it hard to still be attached in that way to the club. So is it the FA? Is it the Premier League? Is it the EFL?
I don't think one body or one person is responsible for the welfare of kids.
Yeah.
I think everybody is.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. If you're an adult, or even if you're your mate, everybody on the planet has a welfare to look after the youngest and oldest. If you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody, but in those two brackets. If you look at, and I don't think that we talk about mental health, and I'm not an expert by any stretch, but it seems a very
current,
and listen to chat shows and mental health's always on it, and people are using that term glibly, and they're using it far too often, in my opinion, right? Because it's always been there.
100%.
Kids haven't changed. Their mental health has not. All right, there's added pressures, but you tell me that you know. I talked to my mother who's 90 something. She says like she could, you know, when she came out of the war and stuff like that, the problem people had, the mental health problems, but they just put it aside and called it nerves. Mm-hmm. We're so more educated and we're so more linked to the holistic thing of kids and development. In other words, it's not just physical, it's mental, it's social, it's all these things. We're so much better at that. So in terms of youth development, we are so much better at that, but we're not good enough.
Well, evidently so. I mean, and I'm not just talking about that one isolated incident. You probably hear in regards to, and see, to be honest, young people who struggle when they're released from an environment. They don't want to be attached because of the peer pressure of their mates and their mates seeing them in a situation, because they do become their mates and their friends and almost brothers in some extent. And losing your brother, it can be one thing, but also losing your family can be another. And I definitely agree with you in regards to that family environment, especially if it's a good environment that's looked after the child, and then all of a sudden they're being detached from that environment. And you almost got to think, what does that detached process look like?
Yeah, I don't think you can protect kids against that.
Yeah.
That in the end, you're not good enough for this particular thing. What you can do is do the best that you can and make sure that you that club or those people know that you care about them. I often question what happens afterwards. So a kid gets released. Are you tracking him? Are you making sure he's all right? Are you following up with stuff? Are you really working hard to get him back on his feet, accepting that he's going to have a torrid time? Yeah. Here's a funny thing that people questioned me and said, well, you know, someone's just been released as a scholar, you know, put him on coaching courses. I said, he doesn't want to do coaching. Why would he just go, all right, I'll be a coach? He's still red with rage and upset about being a player.
And probably still wants to prove that I can be a player.
Ask him 2 years down the line. Now, for me, that's misunderstanding the process of what they go through. I don't think people are trained, and I'm not going to say it's like a bereavement, right? I'm not. But you're trained in dealing with bereavements. Yeah? We're not trained in dealing with that part. And what happens, what's likely to happen to kids when you release them? What's going to happen? They'll go through this period, that. They might get a club straight away. Even then, track them. You keep tracking them to make sure they're all right. Even
Touch
a phone
him,
call.
yeah.
Just touch base with them. Touch base with the family, if not him or her. Because don't forget, there's a lot of girls playing now.
Yeah.
In similar situations. So it's not
100%.
It's not a male provision to be upset at being released.
100%. I was talking to somebody in the women's environment, and it's exactly the same thing, because they're getting better in their environment in regards to the way it is, the professional game. It's definitely a similar approach.
So if you looked at before, during and after, yeah, before the kid gets in, when he's being trialled and spotted, and yeah, that's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Because a trial is a trial.
Yeah.
You know, you can use, you know, it's
tough.
Literal trial. It's tough.
Yeah.
And maybe it should be for some ages, but not for the youngest. So are they included, or do they, you know, they haven't got kit, so they look like a trialist from the minute. They don't feel included. Because when you start to feel included, you'll play better.
Confidence.
So therefore you'll see
Part of the
more.
Part of the family.
It's beggars belief that sometimes I can spot the trialist.
Yeah.
Oh, it's him over there. Why? Because he's not in the right. He's not in kit.
Yeah.
He's not doing this, and actually in the changing room he's sitting over there
in the corner.
Why is that all right? And during, while they're in the building, yeah, the kids. But afterwards, that's the sign of something. And you know, and what people do is, okay, he's gone now. Let's go, right, who's next?
Yeah.
And I think, and you imagine that kid would love the club. And I think you got to get kids to love football, love practicing, love the club. If you're in an academy, love grassroots clubs, same thing, no different. And then, how do you keep them in love with the club when you've just literally ripped their heart out?
Killed them.
But you can. You can if you care about them. It might not be immediate, but they could be season ticket holders later. They could have kids that come back and say, go there because I got released. But
they looked over, yeah.
Do you know what? then I've treated me well.
And you saying that, it's interesting because, again, probably similar to you, I talk to people who, grown men, grown women who released, and they all talk about the release. That's the first thing they generally talk about, and the way that it happened, and it stays in their mind. So I totally agree with you in regards to that process, that in terms of the best possible way that they can look for the child in supporting them is important, really.
There's no person I have ever met that hasn't been devastated by being released, unless, hang on, I might have to contradict myself, unless they've already set something up.
Yeah.
And they're the dad or mum or agent or wherever it is meandered in towards this target.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's devastating.
Yeah, and I'm sure even though they've probably set up something for that small period of time, you feel like you are not good enough.
Here's something that people may or may not consider, is that some people change their work programs, parents, to fit the kids' football. And they agree with the employers and all this. Yeah. What happens then? They've got to renegotiate all the things that they've been working. So it's not just
the child.
You know, and that's the thing, the understanding that the ripples of being released don't just go into, you know, you throw a stone in a pond and you see that ripple, it goes out further and further and further. And in the end, it could manifest itself on the kid being misbehaved at school. Now, I know a case of a kid who got expelled from school, but that was the later ripple of him being released a year before. He lost his self-esteem in the school. He lost his pecking order in the school. Because he was up there.
You're not that footballer anymore. No one's talked to you. Yeah.
He's just one of us.
Yeah.
He wasn't in close contact with his mates, so he had to reform those things. And his
social settings gone.
They've got older. His behaviour changed. Yeah. He dropped a few grades here, there, and everywhere. Started to misbehave, went off the rails, got excluded or suspended, all because of the ripple at the beginning. Now, I'm not saying you can protect against that, but what you can do is put things in place, knowing that something like that could happen. And I'm not sure people. I just think they'd go on.
There's definitely loads of effects in terms of motivation, sense of belonging,
and the loss of the game.
Yeah.
1 minute they're good players and good enough to play, and next minute they've got to come up. They've got to pop up somewhere else. You know, so I think there's a lot of work to be done there. So in that side of youth development is good. The technical side and the tactical side, not so much the technical side. I think we're heading tactically, but I still think the technical side needs a lot more work.